Good morning. Today is May 8th and I'm just checking in with you and just going to give you a quick rundown on what's been going on in the garden. Not really a lot happening this time of year. I can do some about videos and I really need to get around to that, especially dubbing in the one on building a raised bed. Can't do that today because my wife needs our one good microphone for voiceover because she's doing some online tutoring. So I'm going to be good and get out of her way because she's doing real work and this is my hobby. So tomatoes are coming along nicely. They're about a foot tall right now. This one is just starting to set flowers. We had our last really rough night last night. Temperature got down to about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which, let's see if I can put the degrees Celsius right here. That is supposedly sometimes something that can stunt your growth on your warm weather plants. So we'll see how they do. I've also finally seen my potatoes come up. They started coming up around May 4th, so about 4 days ago, and I just finished getting to a point where every grow bag has visible growth from both seed potatoes in it. I also, during the pause where I didn't make any videos, I've planted some more potatoes. My housemate had some that she didn't have a plan for, and so I've thrown them in the ground in a part shade location. None of them have come up yet, but we have at least verified that I'm able to start potatoes. I'm going to be putting my basil in the ground today because I've been kind of holding off on that because I didn't start a lot of extra basil. It is something that's easy to get starts of at a big box store, so no, not a big deal, or even a grocery store. You can plant grocery store basil and it will grow for you. I think that's what I did last year. Let's just kind of walk through the garden together so you can get kind of a view of how everything is laid out. And in this early morning you can see where things are still shaded and where they're not. So that's nice. When I say early, I mean like 9 or 10 o'clock. It's not that early. But I know with some people's gardening videos, I really start to wonder, how do you have everything situated relative to each other? Where is this thing I just saw relative to these other things I've seen? What's going on? And so let's take you, so here are all the beds that we looked at, and way back along the back fence there, that's my raspberry patch. My housemate's beds. There is my other eggplant that I don't mention anywhere else, hanging out in its cage. Squash trellises, my bean teepee, my asparagus and strawberry bed. Here it all is in context. My rhubarb pot. Alright, so now you've seen all of that. Oh, and here are my lovely lilacs and shade trees along the western border of the garden. This is facing north, so my house is on the south. It's not a good situation in terms of shading from the house in the colder months, but the afternoon shade actually helps a lot in my climate. Alright, you can see my peas have actually set their first flowers of the season. That is very exciting for me. And as we zoom back here, I'll get my shadow out of your way, you can see that there are lots of holes in my kohlrabi bed. These were from, I watched it happen, these are from robins. So my lesson I'm going to take moving forward from this is that peas or other vertical crops need to be by themselves, so I can cover my horizontal growing crops with some sort of mesh and protect them from birds, because even the birds that won't eat them directly, like American robins, can still do a lot to disturb my crops. Strawberries have also done a pretty good job flowering and have begun to set fruit. So that's another something to look forward to in June. These are June-bearing strawberries, not ever-bearing, so I should probably do a how-to video on this because there's some stuff I did not know before this year that I'd love to share with you. I don't know if you can see this, but here is just the beginnings of flower starting on my ground cherries. So those are doing really well, plus this little sweet pepper that I've got sitting in the middle of the bed. So I'm very happy with how this bed is going, and I guess the mulch is not very exciting for the American robins in my garden because they haven't disturbed it. Here you can see the largest of my potato sprouts sitting in its grow bag, and as I zoom out you can see the 1 gallon per hour drip emitter. This is an inline emitter, so I just kind of strung a line between all of the beds, and that will keep them watered. And in the middle there's my succulent that usually lives indoors, but I've moved it outside for the summer. It's also being watered by the same drip emitter system. Now, I haven't really said anything about my raspberry patch. Surprise! I have a raspberry patch. Part of why I haven't mentioned it is that my wire trellis I set up for it is a little bit, well, it's a bit amateur hour. But I'm very excited that you can see as I'm setting flowers on all of my canes in preparation for a lovely summer bounty of raspberries. And this is going to be the most raspberries I'm going to get in a season, because the great thing about perennial crops is that once you get them planted and going, you are just going to, with minimal additional effort, get more and more crops. You don't have to set up a wire trellis to grow raspberries, but it really helps keep the canes erect and easy to get to, and kind of defines a good growing space for when you're doing your pruning. And I have both June-bearing and ever-bearing raspberries growing here, so they each get different treatment. June-bearing raspberries grow on floricanes, I think, which is the second year. So the first year the cane grows, and then the second year you get fruit, whereas ever-bearing, I'm gonna have to look that up. I think I might have gotten it backwards. Anyway, it's very confusing. I just planted both to see which one I'd like more. And it's great because I get a big harvest in June and then just a few berries to snack on for the rest of the season, which is a great balance for me. This is my first season growing cilantro, so I'm very excited that it is now recognizably cilantro. And in the same rows you can see I've got, these are red bell peppers. This is the sweet pepper bed. So I've also got some lettuce and some onions in there. And hopefully I've spaced everything so that the cool weather crops are going to give up right around the time my warm weather crops start needing more space. And the onions that survived, looks like I've got some more robin damage in this bed, but the onions that survived that should be spaced so that they don't need any of the space that my sweet peppers are taking up. So that's great. Let's just take a moment and appreciate how pristine this bed is. It is growing under fleece. There has been no digging in the soil. So all of my seedlings have been able to mature unmolested by any birds or cats. And this is the bed. I've also got hot peppers in here now. My beets are rapidly maturing, and hopefully I'll be able to pull them out in another month or so. And then this will just be a hot pepper bed with habaneros, jalapenos, and serrano peppers. My habanero peppers started a little bit late. Let's see if you can even see that in there. I don't know if you can. It's just a little guy. That's pretty sad. So I may or may not have to go to a store and pick up some habanero starts. I keep checking at Home Depot when I pick stuff up for my drip irrigation system, and I haven't found any yet. So I think maybe habaneros are not as popular as they ought to be. Take a moment and appreciate this bed. It is my favorite because it's just so full of life and delicious food going on. So here's where I'm going to be planting out my basil today, and I've already got the tomatoes interplanted with the lettuce and onions and carrots. So it's all thriving really well. I attribute a lot of that to the fact that I was able to start this bed under fleece. I cannot overstate the importance of protecting your early crops if you have a lot of critters in your neighborhood that like to disturb them. So this is what the mature devil's ear looks like, with the pointed red and green leaves. So that's probably where it got its name, devil's ear, because I guess somebody imagined that's what the devil's ears look like. Here's the margarita, similar coloration, broader, rounder leaf shape. Spinach, looks like spinach. Carrots, onions. These onions are doing pretty well considering I sowed them directly. A lot of advice online says start them early in pots and transplant them out. So I'm cautiously optimistic about how this is going to turn out. And here is my lone eggplant in the bed. It looks like many of my tomatoes are already starting to set flowers, if you can see that. And I've already been pulling off suckers. This sucker is going to be allowed to stay here because that's going to be my second vine running up the stake. I like to do 2 vines up a stake. I think conventional wisdom is only do 1, but if you control your leaf growth pretty well, you can accommodate 2 just fine without crowding anything. And that's twice as many opportunities to get fruit. So this is a Hungarian heart. It gives big beefsteak style tomatoes with very little seed and squishy texture in it. It's mostly just the meaty, deep red flesh, although I think it's considered a pink tomato. I don't know. I'm excited to show you this tomato though. It is now my favorite. That's a brief update on what's been going on in the garden, how things have changed. This is going to be a really exciting time of year just for watching things grow, because I'm not doing as much, but the results of what we have done are really going to begin to accelerate as the spring transitions into summer and the weather is more consistently warm. I'm looking ahead and all of my nights are now forecast 50 degrees Fahrenheit or above. So things are really going to start to rock in another week or 2. My beans and squash get to go in, and I'll give it another week or 2 after that to put in corn, because I understand it really likes warm soil for germination. And I want to make sure that growing corn at home for my very first time, it can go off without a hitch. I've actually grown corn professionally, but it was in a lab, and so I did experiments on it and killed it after 2 weeks growth, which is not so rewarding from a harvesting corn perspective, but I guess, you know, I gathered some data and that's what was important in the time. So yeah, this is a look at my garden on May 8th, 2020, and next time you see me, I'm not going to have this little bit of facial hair because it gets in the way of masks, so don't be too shocked if I'm a baby face. That's just how I'm going to be rolling for the next couple months while we hopefully ride out the end of the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll see how that goes. So subscribe, enable notifications if that's still something that happens. If you liked this video, hit like. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to drop them in the comments. My channel is still slow enough that I will have a chance to get back to you, and I might have an answer to your question. I am just a casual gardener. I'm not coming at this as like a professional. I'm not going to claim any master gardener credentials. But I'm pretty good at looking stuff up, so maybe I'll find something you haven't found, or maybe some of the time I spent talking to agronomists up at Utah State University has left me with access to some information that you might not find somewhere else. I don't know. Give it a shot. I'll try not to misinform you. I'm going to try to be really good about saying I don't know instead of making stuff up. Thanks for watching, and I hope that your garden, either in your yard or in your head, is going well.